Yeah, we're going to open a bottle for this tradition. There you go.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Year Was, the podcast all about today that gives you just enough information to effectively be that guy at the party, causing all your friends to question,
hey, who invited you? I mean, like, seriously, why are you here?
I'm your host, Michael Montalvo, and for the next few minutes, we will swim through the river of time to find out what makes today truly unique. On this episode, we examine the events that occurred January 29th. So I have Matt back here today. Well, Matt has me here. But if you will indulge me a moment.
I'm indulging. I'm in an indulgent mood.
Okay, just allow me to present The Ballad of Edgar Allan Poe by Michael Montalvo.
This is yours?
This is mine.
Okay. This has been an evening of surprises.
Yes.
On a number of levels. I can't wait. I'm going to sit. Okay, I got my angle and go.
Okay. Once upon a long time ago, there sat a man with the name Edgar Allan Poe. This man would write by day or night and weave tales of murder and fright. He was a poet and writer too, sometimes a critic and editor, it's true. Poe's classic work, The Telltale Heart, features a man whose sanity is torn apart. The modern detective is credited to him. He wrote best his tales of grim.
I'm sorry, I'm loving this, man. I shouldn't be laughing. It's awesome.
No, it's his father left, he had to flee. Poe's mother died when he was...
Now I don't feel so bad because you left.
You're making me laugh. His father left, he had to flee. Poe's mother died when he was 3.
I'm going to mute my mic and just laugh my ass off. Get used to it and read.
I'm going to read that line again. I'm not going to get through this. I thought I could. His father left, he had to flee. Poe's mother died when he was 3. At age 13, he wrote poems in private, but guardian John Allan despised it.
I'm just scratching my
eyes,
dude. I'm not laughing.
Let me put my hood up so I don't see you. Then that way.
I'm going to move over here and let you do this.
Poe went to university, but let's not forget, no money in gambling led him far into debt. He returned home to find his fiancée gone. She was engaged to another, so Poe left at dawn. This time in Boston, he published a book, then joined the army, and that's all it took. His guardian mother was sick with TB. He returned to Virginia so her he could see. He made peace with John Allan and went to West Point, but after a year was kicked out of that joint. I can still hear you.
Sorry.
He published book 3 and now wrote full-time. John Allan then died, leaving Poe not a dime. He struggled in poverty, but published more work. Writing reviews, Poe was a bit of a jerk. He left a magazine job, which is kind of a shame. People say that alcohol was to blame. He went to New York and published some more, then wrote down a word, the word nevermore. The year was 1845, and on this day the Raven would finally arrive. He criticized poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, called him a plagiarist with work that was hollow. Despite some success, he continued to struggle. Then his wife died and he had no one to snuggle.
Come on! I could not laugh.
Poe had married Virginia when she was 13. She died at 24. No one could intervene. She had tuberculosis like his brother and mom. When he lost her, he lost all of his calm. He struggled with poverty, grief, and health stuff. The final days of his life must have been pretty rough. He died October 7th, 1849. It turns out Poe had not been real fine. His last days of life had been in distress. The cause of his death was a bit of a mess. He had been delirious with a coma, a clue. Some think it was drugs and alcohol too. Combative with tremors, hallucinations, and more, physicians in Maryland say it was most likely rabies.
Wow. That's quite possibly the most Montalvo thing I've ever heard in my life, dude. That was beautiful.
Yeah, it took a bit to get through it. So I don't know.
I didn't make it through it. I'm sorry. I totally scratched your reading, man.
I'm going to leave all of that in. I'm going to cut out the bigger gaps, but it's all just going to stay.
Yeah, the laps were the ones where I laughed myself out of breath. Yeah, I can totally get that. I think I elbowed the table once trying to cover my mouth in time.
This one, if you were not able to grab from that, we're talking about The Raven, which was published January 29th, 1845. The Raven's perhaps Edgar Allan Poe's most famous work, and it was published in 1845, like we said. and it tells the story of a man tormented by a bird on a December night described as bleak. While reading, the speaker falls asleep and is woken by a tapping at the door. But he doesn't answer because he's become depressed and Lenore, his love, is dead.
Right. He didn't know what it was or who it was.
He didn't know what it was or who it was. So he eventually decides to open the door and is greeted by Darkness, his old friend. I wrote that joke just for you.
I like that. I've got a guitar. We'll do that later.
And he whispers the name Lenore and only hears his echo in return. Confused, he returns to his room and the rapping resumes. He probably just found out Eminem released a new album and has the album on repeat. And while that reference won't age this episode horribly, he thinks to himself, yeah, I don't know, it's probably a tree or something. The moment after his shutters are opened, a stately raven flies to the top of his chamber door, which I actually Googled because I wanted to know exactly what they meant. It's just his bedroom.
But he has a bust.
Yes, he has
above the door.
The bust of Pallas.
Okay, I was having a hard time picturing that on an interior bedroom. Like, why would you want to go to bed like staring at a bust of? I mean, unless it's an actual bust. I mean, like
I get it.
Of the memorial persuasion. Is that a word? I made it up. If not,
it's a word now.
Yeah, so that would work for me. But like some cat staring at me, that'd be freaky.
It's a little bit freaky,
right?
So I can't do it. No one can see this, and I realize I'm making a motion with my hand, just going towards my face.
like the rays of stare.
Yeah, this is the stare rays. Yeah. So he asks the bird its name, and the raven replies, Roak, son of Kark, but my friends call me Nevermore.
Right on.
The speaker then stands just marveling at this bird that has flown into his room, trying to figure out what it means. He figures the bird learnt Nevermore from its previous master before he died, and the bird just stares at him and smiles.
I have a question.
Yep.
How does a bird smile exactly?
It's more with the eyes. If you ever watch American Top Model, you smile with your eyes, not with your mouth.
All right. I mean, I've heard of chicken lips.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a thing, but I was trying to.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just curious.
That's my guess on it.
I'm gonna roll with it, man. That's all I got.
It sounded like it worked, and I'm surprised I pulled that reference out.
That was awesome,
by
the way.
So the speaker rejoices to the bird. You must be an angel sent to me by God to release me of this pain, to which the bird replies, Nevermore. And suddenly, as if talking to a bird was no indication, he goes a bit crazy, thinking the bird might be the devil, or the very least, a fiend. Hold your gasp.
I'm working on it.
Talking to the raven, he comes to the conclusion that he will not see Lenore in heaven, and so essentially tells the bird to piss off, and the bird just sits there.
Right.
They had a real Nikola Tesla and pigeon situation going on.
Okay, I could see that.
Yep. And
I think I think Tesla was probably a little more suave about the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's how I picture it anyway.
I could see that.
I mean, he married the pigeon.
Yes.
This is like a, sort of a dysfunctional, the hot chick that's a pain in the ass kind of thing.
Took the pigeon to the movie theater, did the whole yawn and arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
The poem ends here, and with the man remembering the night the raven first came to him, and the raven which remains sitting just above the door. Now, for me, The Raven is one of those poems that you find as a kid or as a teen, and it just burrows into your mind and kind of stays there. It just sticks with you, and it's good to read, I think.
It is. I've got to say, if I can, I'm not a poetry fan.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to high school and the things we were meant to read, I was checking out reams of nonfiction and science and history, and that was my thing. So when I went to English Lit,
mm-hmm.
we were forced to it, and I honestly have a hard time gripping the meaning of anything. I mean, of a poem. Shakespeare, I can't do it. I can watch Shakespeare. Yeah. I saw a wonderful production of As You Like It that was fantastic at the Globe Theater when I was high school or so. I was really impressed, but I have to say the experience tonight is the most profound experience I've ever had with poetry, because I managed to duck it until college. I was forced to take one, and it's like we say in the military, embrace the suck. Yeah, is how it was. And I think I rolled out of there with a B, and it was a summer course, so less attention span. This has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
I haven't decided yet if we're going to put this at the start of the episode or at the end of the episode, but for everyone who doesn't know at this point, which is everybody, we went in and did a recording, or I had you do a recording of The Raven.
Which was a surprise. This has been a fantastic evening. My wife's out of town. Mike calls me up and says, hey, I want to shoot a reading of The Raven. And I thought it was going to be Mike. Mm-hmm. And so we get set up Led Zeppelin style. I used a nice soft room in my house, and we ran the lines and set everything up. And Mike was like, well, you're going to be reading it. Wow, okay, well, coming over a cold, but I'll give it a shot. And it wasn't until the moment that we got through it all, and I would read, and you would say, okay, here's what's going on here. And then I read it, and I read it with the inflection you asked for, which I'm not a voice actor, folks. I'll tell you right now, I don't expect that. But that gave it meaning, and I understood it. It really clicked with me. So I really appreciate that. Yeah. That's been great.
That's great. Yeah. Did you read? Or you said you didn't really get into poetry then, as a kid, or even in school.
I never did. I'm gonna say some harsh things. So the big poets, the Poes, and all those guys that we studied. I just. Again, the language, we were talking about the language in some of it. And so when I was, when I go to college, started in 89. And so your mindset at that, when I'm studying law enforcement and doing things, and I'm really into music, but I barely, songs that I've written, I don't sing in except for some background, and I just kind of blow the lyrics off.
Yeah.
So long way of saying I just never absorbed anything. There was very little I just got into.
Okay.
And now that was my problem with it. I just have that kind of brain that doesn't. My wife understands all of it. Our friend Sarah Bonsbach.
Yeah, if I could have gotten her down here, I would have loved to have her here for this one.
I would be embarrassed reading that in front of Sarah. She's amazing. She's now a PhD, I think.
I think
English
so.
Lit, and she posts some things that they might as well be in a foreign language to me. It's amazing, and I feel guilty that I don't completely understand it sometimes. But this has been a cool experience. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this too, and kind of looking at the nature of Poe's writing and how it really has a feeling of mystery and dread and fear to it, and in some of his other works as well. Not necessarily just this one over here, but I think that's what kind of excites people. And it keeps him coming back, and that's why he's still popular today.
Yeah.
Than what we were looking at, before. And I wrote this down on here. I wanted to make sure to say this because it is a world of informative murder porn that we are excited by the unknown. And Poe's writing has just that unknown element in it.
It does. And for the people that are just going to hear the reading, I would like I said, I would read it. And Mike would say, okay, this part, he's pleading, which it didn't read like that. I'm thinking he's angry. And you say, okay, he's angry. Okay, now I understand that. And now he's calming down and speeding up in the cadence. And that made it, having to do that, that really sank.
You were reading it too, and I was going in there. I've been reading this poem on and off for the last week now. And I came over to your house and I just kind of threw it at you and just said, here, read this. And you really nailed it out of the park, I think.
Hey, thanks, man. I'm not a voice actor. I do some voiceover recording, and I kind of just from absorbing media, I can tell people you need to hit this word, skip that word, do this. Mainly because I'm worried about time because I'm recording commercials and radio spots and stuff like that for folks. And you gave the best notes I've ever heard anybody give.
Oh, thank you.
It really drove it. And Mike is a very laid back dude. And everybody that knows him, compared to all the alpha windbags in our group, and he's kind of a slave driver as a voice director, and it's great. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed having to read it right, and again, it became very poignant, and even like I said, it's been over 30 years.
Yeah,
probably 30 years since I read it. And you hear bits and pieces here and there, and but that was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Now I want to hear somebody who knows what the hell they're doing read it. So I'm going to go to YouTube later tonight and check that out.
on that, yeah, if anyone wants to look more into Poe's work or just in poetry in general, definitely YouTube is a great place to go to hear readings and to see people kind of perform these things. And then just anywhere you can really go pick up a book or go into online and just find different poems, because there's really something for everybody in that.
I think I kind of grew up in a dead time for that. Well, my high school and college. Finished high school 89 and college after that. And so the people that are reading it are the super introspective emo college students. And
no, I'm just showing my cards about what I was. And
was that you?
No,
was that you? Well, we had them, and there was an actress that sat behind me, a beautiful girl, and she dressed like she had just come back from Manhattan every day at school. The stuff that the fashion you started seeing, she would wear it, and then like 2 weeks later, you would start seeing it on TV.
Yeah.
And the teacher was like this old hippie chick that was pretty cool. And she put up with my crap, with my difficulty in understanding all this. But one day that actress got up and read something, and she was absolutely amazing. I don't even remember what it was, but just I didn't hear the lyrics. I didn't. I'm sorry, it's musician stuff. I didn't hear the prose. It was just she read it so well, and it's like that production of As You Like It.
Yeah.
Even As You Like It, for somebody like me who has an extremely analytical, kind of a technical writing style, and I suck at stories. I suck at fiction. I can write, like I've written. I taught police report writing, and I can write a fictional police report like as an example. And I've written them for humor. I did the one about the dog stealing the tomatoes, and I did another one about a bunch of us chasing a chicken one night, and it's humorous, but it's still in that form. And so to be in that world and kind of get a sense of it, the teacher, I didn't like the way she read. The other students didn't give a shit. This girl nailed it, like just perfectly. I go, okay, this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then, on the occasional date, you wind up, on a beatnik night at a coffee shop, and it's the same shit. Some stone dude gets up there and reads stuff like he's, been beaten by his mother, and you're just like, oh, man, when's this over? Because I know this really cool band that's playing around the corner, so.
You get the bongos and the snapping after.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah. One dude, just like random, just ear, like a recording engineer I worked with was talking about a guitar tone. They call him lasery beams of ass tone out of this guitar while he was playing. So trebly beams of ass tone is what he said. And it was stuff like that. So I just never really, and I've never gotten on YouTube and looked because I just sort of wrote the whole genre off. But that's been good, man. I really appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where we're going to end it.
Right on, man.
If you want to hang out some more, we can do that.
Oh yeah, man. Well, we still got cables to wrap and stuff to put up and a stupid movie to finish.
Well, I know someone's going to ask me something I don't know about Edgar Allan Poe. So in order to preemptively answer that, how about I just spell Mississippi? So it's MISSSISSSIPPI.
Yeah, sounds right.
Everyone, we went in and recorded The Raven before recording this episode, and I wanted to go ahead and throw that in here. So before we sign off, here is Matt's reading of The Raven.
The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow for the lost Lenore. For the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," I said, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door. That I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was a whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my saddened fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven now, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marvel this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, but we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door. Bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word did he outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking, fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here shore. Desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden if, within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend. I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him, streaming, throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.
And that's going to do it for us today. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, give us a rate and a review. That helps me out and helps me steer this in a direction that is hopefully good for all. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find the audio version on your podcast app of choice. Links in the description. You can find me on social media and at YouTube at the Apple Cider Club, and you can find Matt at
The Van Cave on YouTube, Van Cave on Facebook, and thevancave.com for a list of the audio feed.
I want to thank the Tim Kreitz Band for our musical theme. Thank you, Matt, for being on this one and for recording. I know we kind of threw this at you last minute, so
My pleasure. That was fun. It really was.
And as always, I want to thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. I did the sound effect.
Like and subscribe.